It started out as one of those nights where everything just felt off. It wasn't anything specific, just that quiet kind of heaviness that sometimes settles into the air when you've had a long week, your phone's dead, and all your friends are either busy or ghosting you. I was sitting on my bed scrolling through Reddit with the lights off, the glow from my laptop screen, the only thing keeping me company. I had just closed out a work shift and scarfed down some takeout, and now I was trying to zone out. But I kept thinking about my roommate Tyler. He'd been acting kind of strange for the past few days. Not in a bad way, just quieter. He usually filled the apartment with sound. Random guitar strumming, half-sung lyrics from the shower, or yelling at FIFA on his PS5. But lately, nothing. Just his door closed and the occasional microwave beep. We weren't super close, but we got along. I moved in with Tyler about 7 months ago when I had to leave my old place on short notice. He was chill, funny, and one of those guys who could make anyone feel comfortable in a room. Tall, broad-shouldered, kind of the golden retriever type. I always thought he was straight. He talked about girls now and then, had the occasional late-night date, but nothing ever seemed serious. So when there was a knock at my door around 11:40 p.m., I figured he was going to ask if I wanted to split another order of wings, or maybe borrow my HDMI cable again. Instead, when I opened it, he was just standing there in joggers and a t-shirt, looking almost nervous. "Hey," he said. His voice was soft. "You up?" "Yeah," I said, sitting up. "What's up?" He hesitated for a second, running a hand through his messy brown hair. "I don't know. I was just wondering if you could do me a favor." I tilted my head. "Sure. What kind of favor?" Tyler looked down for a second, then back up at me, and when he spoke again, his voice had this odd vulnerability to it I'd never heard before. "Can I sleep in here tonight? He paused, and the words came out a little rushed. "I've been feeling kind of off lately, and I don't really want to be alone right now." I blinked, caught completely off guard. Yeah, sure. Cool," he said quickly, like he didn't want to give me time to think it through. "Thanks, man." He stepped into my room and gently closed the door behind him. For a second, we both just stood there, awkwardly hovering. "You can have the bed," I said, starting to grab my pillow like I was going to take the couch or the floor. "No, dude," he cut in, shaking his head. "That's not what I meant. I mean, I was wondering if we could." He trailed off, looking weirdly shy. "Cuddle, like, just for a bit." I stared at him. "You want to cuddle?" He let out a breathy laugh, half embarrassed. "Yeah. I know it sounds dumb. I just haven't really touched anyone in a while. And I guess it's starting to mess with me." "You don't have to, I just thought I'd ask." I didn't know what to say. Because the truth was, I'd thought about it. I'd thought about him. A lot. But I'd never let it go anywhere. Because Tyler was Tyler. My straight, chill, definitely not into me roommate. I wasn't going to be the weird one who made it uncomfortable. But now he was standing there, in my room. Asking to cuddle. And something about the way he said it, so sincere and almost ashamed, made me set the pillow down and nod. "Yeah, all right." His shoulders relaxed, and he gave me a small smile that looked a little too grateful. We climbed onto the bed, both facing the wall at first, not touching. Then he shifted slightly, and I felt his arm brush against mine. After a moment, he slid closer, resting a hand lightly on my side, like he was asking for permission without words. I didn't move, and then, without any warning, I felt him exhale, this slow, heavy breath, like he'd been holding it in all week. "Thanks," he murmured, so quiet I almost didn't hear it. I stayed still, my heart pounding in my chest, suddenly way too aware of the heat between us. Something had changed. I didn't know what yet. But I knew this wasn't just about being lonely. I barely slept that night. Tyler didn't move much after he got settled. Just lay there behind me, one arm resting gently across my waist, like it was the most natural thing in the world. His breathing evened out pretty quickly, deep and steady, while mine was all over the place. I kept my eyes open in the dark, staring at the wall, trying to process what the hell was happening. He hadn't said much, just that he was feeling off, that he didn't want to be alone, that he wanted to cuddle. But who does that? Who knocks on their roommate's door at almost midnight, asking to cuddle, unless there's something more going on? I didn't want to read into it too much. Tyler wasn't gay. As far as I knew, he hadn't even questioned it. He talked about girls, went on dates, showed me TikToks of girls dancing, and said dumb stuff like wife me up. So maybe this was just some weird one-off moment. Maybe he was really just feeling down and needed human contact. No big deal, right? Except it felt like a big deal. Not just because of what he asked, but because of how I felt lying there, his body pressed lightly against mine. It didn't feel platonic. At least, not to me. Around 4 a.m., I must have drifted off for a bit, because the next thing I remember was sunlight peeking through the blinds, and Tyler still curled up next to me, his forehead nearly touching the back of my neck. He stirred not long after. I felt him shift a little, then pause, like he was realizing where he was. "You awake?" he asked quietly. "Yeah," I said, still facing away from him. There was a long pause. Then he pulled back slightly, and the bed shifted as he sat up. "Shit. Sorry, man, I didn't mean to be weird." "It's not weird," I said quickly, maybe too quickly. He scratched the back of his head, looking anywhere but at me. "I didn't mean to crash the whole night. I thought I'd fall asleep for like an hour and go back to my room, but I guess I was more out of it than I thought." "It's fine," I said, sitting up too. I didn't mind. He looked at me then, eyes searching mine for something, though I didn't know what. He gave a small nod. "Cool." And just like that, he got up and walked out of my room. I sat there in the quiet for a long time, trying to figure out what the hell just happened. Whether it meant something, whether he was just touch-starved and didn't want to admit it. The rest of the day was weirdly normal. Tyler made coffee like he always did. He went for a jog, came back sweaty and shirtless. Nothing new. We didn't mention the night before, and I didn't push it, but I could feel something different. The way he kept glancing at me when he thought I wasn't looking. The way his knee brushed mine when we sat on the couch and he didn't move away. The silence that felt more loaded than usual. That night we were both on the couch watching some Netflix documentary, and he shifted a little closer than usual, his arm resting on the back of the couch behind me. "You ever think about how weird it is," he said suddenly, "that people don't touch more?" I turned to look at him. "What do you mean?" He shrugged, his eyes still on the TV. "Like, we're all walking around pretending like we're fine all the time, but half of us are probably touch-deprived as hell. I don't know. It just feels like everyone's afraid to admit they want closeness." I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I get that." He was quiet for a minute, then added, "Last night helped. I didn't think it would, but it did. I just felt better, safer." That word hit me harder than I expected. "Anytime," I said, and I meant it. He turned his head, his eyes landing on mine for a beat too long. Then he looked away and stood up. "I'm gonna shower." I watched him walk down the hall, and the moment the bathroom door shut, I felt that same tension settle into my chest again. Something was happening. I just didn't know how far it was going to go. That weekend, everything felt like it was teetering on the edge of something. Tyler and I didn't talk about that night again, but the energy between us shifted. Not in some dramatic, obvious way, more like a quiet current pulling us into deeper water. He started sitting closer to me on the couch, brushing against me in the kitchen more often, pausing when our eyes met like he was waiting for something. And I couldn't stop thinking about it. That closeness, the way his body felt pressed against mine, the fact that he wanted that from me. Saturday night, we ordered pizza and watched a horror movie, something stupid with jump scares every 2 minutes. Tyler sat next to me, legs stretched out, one arm thrown casually behind me on the back of the couch. It was a position that could have passed as normal, unless you noticed the way his fingers sometimes grazed the back of my neck when he shifted. I pretended not to. Halfway through the movie, he nudged me with his knee. "You good?" I nodded. "Why?" He shrugged. "You've been quiet." "Just tired," I lied. "Same," he said. And then, after a beat, "Want to crash in my room tonight?" I turned to look at him. He didn't flinch. Didn't laugh it off like it was a joke. Just held my gaze, waiting for an answer. "You want me to sleep in your room?" He nodded, like it was the most casual thing in the world. "Yeah, I don't know. It just felt better the other night, you know? Less heavy." I didn't know what to say. My heart was hammering in my chest, and all I could think was, this means something. But I didn't know how to ask what. After a second, I just said, "Okay." We didn't say much as we got ready for bed. I went to the bathroom to brush my teeth, took my time, trying to calm myself down. When I walked into his room, he was already under the covers, the lamp casting a soft glow on his face. He looked up at me, not smiling, just watching. "You sure you're cool with this?" "Yeah," I said, closing the door behind me. "Totally." The bed wasn't small, but it wasn't exactly roomy either. When I slid in next to him, our arms brushed. He didn't move. "Lights?" he asked. "Yeah," I murmured. He reached over and turned off the lamp, and just like that, we were in the dark again. Quiet. Close. For a few minutes, nothing happened. I lay there stiffly, unsure if he was waiting for me to do something, or if this was going to be like last time. Quiet, calm, him falling asleep before I could even process the moment. Then, slowly, I felt his hand rest on my chest, not tentative this time, steady. "You good?" he asked, voice low. "Yeah," I said, barely able to get the word out. He shifted slightly, and I could feel the heat of his body inching closer. His breath touched my cheek, then his head rested against my shoulder. "Do you ever miss this?" he asked, and I could feel the words more than hear them. Like, before the world made it weird to be this close with someone. I swallowed hard. "Yeah," another pause. "I don't think I felt like this in a long time," he whispered. "Like what?" "Safe." That word again. I didn't say anything. I didn't know how to. Instead, I reached up and placed my hand lightly over his. He exhaled slowly, like something inside him had just unclenched. And we stayed like that for the rest of the night. No words, just closeness, just breath and warmth and all the things we weren't ready to say out loud yet. But it was clear now. Something was happening, and neither of us wanted it to stop. I didn't wake up until almost 10 the next morning. The first thing I felt was warmth. Tyler's body pressed close to mine again, even closer than last time. His arm was still draped across my chest, and his leg had somehow slid between mine. It wasn't just casual anymore. This was the kind of position you fall into when you're comfortable, when you're used to someone's body, their rhythm, their presence. And I hated how much I liked it. His breath was slow, steady against my neck. I stayed still, trying not to wake him, even though my brain was already in overdrive. I kept thinking, is he dreaming? Does he know how close he is? Is this still just about comfort, or something else? Then I felt his hand tighten, just a little. His fingers flexed, and his thumb started to move, tracing slow, absent circles against my chest, like he wasn't fully awake but wasn't asleep either. And then came the whisper, "You're warm." I froze. He said it so quietly, I almost thought I imagined it. But then he shifted, pulling himself even closer, and I felt his lips, brush the back of my shoulder. It wasn't a kiss exactly, more like a soft accidental graze, but it sent a jolt straight down my spine. "Tyler," I said, voice tight. He stilled. Another pause, and then his voice, quieter this time. "Yeah? Are you awake?" A beat. "Yeah." I turned my head slightly, enough to glance at him. His eyes were open now, watching me in the dim morning light. He didn't look away. "You okay?" I asked. He nodded. "Yeah, I just..." He exhaled, his brow furrowing a little. "I don't know what I'm doing." "Okay. I just know it feels good being here, with you." I didn't respond. I didn't trust myself to. He sat up slowly, running a hand through his messy hair. "Shit, sorry if that was too much." "It wasn't," I said quickly. You didn't do anything wrong. Tyler gave me a half smile. This is so weird, right? I nodded. Kind of. But not in a bad way? I looked at him, really looked at him. Eyes still soft from sleep, a little confused, a little vulnerable. No, I said, not in a bad way. He nodded slowly, like he was trying to file that away for later. We didn't talk much the rest of the morning. We made breakfast side by side. Eggs and toast and coffee, acting like roommates again. But every so often, our eyes would meet, and something would pass between us. Something quiet, unspoken, but heavier than it had been before. That afternoon, I caught him staring at me while I was doing dishes. Not in a creepy way. Just watching. Thinking. Like he wanted to say something, but didn't know how. Later that night, after we both showered and sat on the couch in hoodies and sweats, watching YouTube and trying to be chill, he finally asked, "You think I'm messed up?" I turned toward him. "Why would I think that?" He shrugged, eyes on the TV. "I don't know. Most guys don't need this." I leaned back. "You think being close to someone makes you weak? No. I think being close to you makes me think things I haven't before." That hit me harder than I expected. "You ever thought about it?" he added, barely above a whisper. "Being with a guy?" I didn't look at him. "Yeah." He nodded slowly. "I haven't. Not really. But now, I don't know." Silence stretched between us. "You're not messed up, Tyler," I said finally. "Not even close." He looked at me again, and this time, there was something in his expression I hadn't seen before. Something raw and open. "I might ask again tonight," he said. "For what?" "To sleep in your bed," I nodded. Okay. And for the second time that week, we fell asleep wrapped up in each other. But this time, it wasn't just about being lonely anymore. That night felt different from the others. Not because of anything he said or did, but because of what he didn't say. Tyler didn't ask to sleep in my bed again. He just showed up at my door around midnight, already in a hoodie and shorts, hair still damp from his shower. He didn't knock. Just eased the door open and stood there for a second, like he was making sure it was still okay. I sat up in bed and looked at him. He didn't speak, just gave me this small, uncertain smile and lifted one hand in a barely there wave. I pulled back the blanket without a word. He climbed in. This time, we didn't keep any distance between us. He settled behind me almost immediately, one arm around my waist, his forehead resting lightly against the back of my neck. There wasn't a nervous pause. No awkward tension. It was like we'd already crossed the line, and now we were just there. I could feel his breath against my skin, the slow rise and fall of his chest against my back, the weight of his hand on my stomach, firm and steady. And then, slowly, his fingers started moving again, those slow, lazy circles just beneath the hem of my shirt. "Can I ask you something?" he murmured, his voice low and close to my ear. "Yeah," I whispered. "Why haven't you said anything about all this?" I turned my head slightly, enough to catch a glimpse of his face in the dark. "Because I didn't want to scare you off." He was quiet for a second. Then he said, "You wouldn't." His hand moved slightly, grazing higher now, just under the fabric, his fingertips skimming the bare skin of my side. I shivered, but not from the cold. "Do you want this?" he asked, so soft it was barely audible. I didn't answer right away. I didn't need to. I just reached back and slid my fingers over his hand, lacing them together. "I do," I said, "but only if you do." "I don't know what I want," he admitted, "but I know I don't want to stop whatever this is." That honesty, it hit me in a way nothing else had. "Then we don't have to define it," I said. "We just do what feels right." Tyler let out a breath like he'd been holding it all day. He pressed closer, his chest flush against my back, our legs tangled now. And then, softly, almost tentatively, he pressed his lips to my shoulder. This time, it wasn't an accident. It wasn't subtle. It was a kiss. I closed my eyes, heart hammering. He didn't move after that, didn't say anything else. He just held me, quiet and close, like his entire body was trying to apologize for all the things he hadn't been able to say yet. In the morning, he was still there, and when I turned to face him, he didn't flinch or pull away. He just looked at me with those sleep-heavy eyes and said, "You still okay?" "Yeah," I said. "Are you?" He nodded. More than I've been in a long time. We got up, made coffee together in the kitchen, and for the first time since we started this strange, quiet shift between us, it didn't feel like something we had to tiptoe around anymore. It felt safe. Whatever it was we were building, it was real now. And it wasn't just about loneliness anymore. It was about us. The weirdest part was how normal everything felt after that. You'd think waking up wrapped around your roommate after he kissed your shoulder and whispered that he didn't want to stop whatever this was would make things awkward. But it didn't. If anything, we fell into this rhythm like it had always been there, just waiting for us to catch up. We didn't talk about labels. We didn't tell anyone. We didn't even change how we acted around our friends. But in the apartment, in our little two-bedroom world, things were different. He'd find reasons to touch me more, resting his hand on my leg while we watched TV, nudging his shoulder against mine when we were cooking together, leaning in just a little closer when he laughed. I started sleeping in his bed more often than not. We didn't do much, just held each other, talked in whispers, occasionally let our hands linger a little longer than before, but something about it made everything else fade away. It was easy. Too easy, maybe. One night we were on the couch, him lying with his head in my lap, scrolling through his phone. I was absent-mindedly running my fingers through his hair, something I'd started doing without even thinking about it. He tilted his head to look up at me. "You ever think this is going to get complicated?" he asked. I paused. "It already kind of is." He gave a half smile. "Yeah, but like, more complicated." "You mean if one of us catches feelings?" He sat up, placing his phone on the coffee table. "Yeah," I met his eyes. "What if one of us already did?" The room went quiet. He looked at me for a long time, and something flickered behind his eyes. Fear, maybe, or confusion. Then he leaned in, his voice low. "Did you?" I nodded. He didn't say anything right away. He just reached for my hand, threading our fingers together. "I think I'm halfway there," he admitted. "Maybe more." I felt something loosen in my chest, like a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding finally let go. "Can I tell you something?" he asked. "Anything." I used to think intimacy was only about a chillin', that if I wasn't hooking up, I wasn't connecting. But this? Just being with you? It feels like the first real thing I've had in a long time. I didn't know what to say. I just squeezed his hand and leaned my forehead against his. "I don't want to mess this up," he murmured. "Then don't," I said. That night, when we got in bed, he pulled me closer than ever. No hesitation. No second guessing. His mouth found mine for the first time, not rushed, not sloppy, just a quiet press of lips that felt like a question and a promise all at once. He pulled back slightly, his voice barely audible. "That okay?" I nodded. "Yeah, that's more than okay." And just like that, the space between us disappeared. We didn't rush anything. We didn't need to. But with that kiss, something shifted again, this time for real. This wasn't just two lonely guys trying to fill some emotional void. This was becoming something bigger, something worth holding on to. We kissed again the next night, and the one after that. It didn't explode into something physical right away, but it didn't have to. Every kiss felt like it was rewiring me, reshaping the way I thought about us, about him, about myself. It was slow, careful, like we were building something we didn't want to break by moving too fast. The weird thing was how nothing around us changed, and yet everything felt different. Tyler would still toss his laundry on the floor. I still hogged the remote. But then he'd slip his hand into mine while we were brushing our teeth or lean his head on my shoulder during a movie, and I'd feel this warmth buzz through my chest like I was 19 again, and figuring it all out for the first time. One night we were making pasta. Well, I was making pasta, and he was stealing all the cheese, and I looked over and just said it, without even thinking. "I like this." He looked up, a piece of shredded mozzarella hanging from his lips. Like, what? This. Us. He didn't say anything for a second. Then he grinned, dropped the cheese, and pulled me in by the front of my hoodie. I do too, he said, more than I probably should. And then he kissed me right there in the kitchen, tasting like cheap wine and Parmesan. Things were easy until they weren't. It was a Thursday night when I got home and found him sitting on the couch, staring at the TV like it had personally offended him. Something in his body was tight. His jaw, his shoulders, the air felt different. Heavy. "You good?" I asked. He nodded but didn't look at me. My mom called. I sat down next to him, waiting. She asked if I was still seeing that girl from last year. And I couldn't say anything. I didn't correct her. I just let her talk like that was still my life. I stayed quiet. She kept going on about how she can't wait for me to settle down, find the right girl, give her grandkids, and I just sat there like a coward. "You're not a coward." "I am," he said, finally looking at me. "Because I'm scared, man. I'm scared to tell them about this. About you. About what we've been doing. It's like if I say it out loud, I won't be able to take it back." I nodded slowly. "You don't owe anyone an explanation until you're ready." He exhaled hard, rubbing his face. "I just feel like I'm lying to everyone." "You're not. You're figuring it out. That's not a lie." He looked at me then, and there was something in his eyes, this blend of fear and gratitude. Like, he didn't know what he'd done to deserve someone who didn't push him for more than he could give. "I don't know what this is," he said, "but I know it's not just loneliness anymore." "Yeah," I said, "me too." He pulled me in, arms around my waist, his head resting against my shoulder. It wasn't about lust or confusion anymore. It was about safety, about finding that one person you could fall apart next to and know they wouldn't leave. That night, he climbed into my bed without saying a word. We didn't touch for a while, just lay there in the dark. Then he whispered, "Would you be okay if I didn't figure it all out right away?" I turned to him, brushing his hand with mine. "I'd be okay as long as you're here while you do." And he stayed. That night, he stayed. 3 weeks later, he kissed me in public. It wasn't planned. We were at a small house party. Some friends from work threw nothing crazy, just beers and bad music. A backyard full of half-broken lawn chairs and twinkly lights. Tyler stuck close to me all night, like he always did now. But this time, he didn't pull back when people looked. He didn't step away when our arms touched. Didn't flinch when my hand grazed his. And then, in the middle of some dumb story I was telling about my boss forgetting his own birthday, he leaned in and kissed me. Right there, in front of 2 of my coworkers and someone from his soccer league. It wasn't a deep kiss, just a soft, quick one. But it was enough to stop me mid-sentence. He pulled back slowly, looked at me for a beat like he was still catching his breath, then said, "Sorry, I didn't want to wait till we got home." My stomach flipped. One of my coworkers gave a little smile and went back to sipping her drink. No one said anything. No one stared. The world kept turning. Later that night, we curled up on the couch back at the apartment, his hoodie still smelling faintly like the bonfire. My legs were stretched across his lap, his fingers idly drawing shapes on my shin. "I'm still scared," he said. "I know, but it's easier when you're around." I looked at him. "I'm not going anywhere," he nodded. I figured. Then he leaned back and tugged me down with him. Wrapping his arms around me like he'd done that very first night, he knocked on my door and said he was lonely. Only now, it wasn't about needing to fill a space. Now it was about choosing it. Choosing me. And maybe that's what love really is. When it starts slow and messy, uncertain and quiet, but builds into something you never expected, something you can't imagine undoing. Because some people don't just ask to share your bed. They find their way into your life and never leave.